Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. If you are in the market for a premium laptop that balances design, usability, portability and performance, you have probably heard of Dell's XPS lineup. Today we take a look at their latest 17-inch iteration that may offer the same chassis we know from the previous years, but makes the jump to Intel's new Alder Lake generation. If a new CPU and a content creator's wet dream of a display is enough to make the big XPS stand out amongst the newest MacBook Pros or other premium Windows notebooks like the Lenovo ThinkBook X1 or Asus VivoBook Pro, we will tell you in our review. When you lay eyes on the XPS for the first time, you will see a good looking laptop that wouldn't offend anybody in a coffee shop, in an office or on a professional photo shoot. When you pick it up for the first time, you will notice how heavy it is. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, since it also feels very dense in a way that just inspires confidence in its build quality. While the overall design language hasn't changed over the past few years, Dell still managed to make the XPS feel very modern, which is certainly helped by the extremely narrow screen bezels. Once you open it up, it's basically all screen. Regarding ports, Dell took a page out of Apple's book and reduced the variety to 4 USB-C Thunderbolt 4 ports, an audio combo port and a full-size SD card reader. To ensure you're not fully reliant on third-party adapters, Dell is kind enough to include a very portable USB-A and HDMI adapter in the box. Given that the XPS will most likely attract a certain crowd amongst creatives, and rightfully so, the inclusion of the SD card reader to offload pictures or video files is not only a nice touch, the reader also offers very fast read and write speeds. While Wi-Fi performance is mostly usable in everyday use, we could reproduce some fluctuations during our testing when transmitting data. Buyers should also be aware that the XPS can't connect to the latest Wi-Fi 6E networks. The XPS can also score some upgradability points despite the sleek chassis. You have easy access to the RAM slots and 2 NVMe SSD slots. While we are not particularly fond of the keyboard, it feels very soft and a little loose. The insanely large trackpad leaves nothing to be desired. It feels great to the touch and everything from simple tracking to gestures works reliably and feels very intuitive. In our review configuration, the large 17-inch screen is also a touchscreen, which is another welcome way to interact with the XPS. While most manufacturers slapped full coverage of DCI-P3 on their marketing material for the past few years, Dell is one of the last to advocate for the Adobe RGB standard. Since it's an even slightly larger color gamut than DCI-P3 and of course sRGB for that matter, the Dell's display is an absolute joy for content creators that need a professional level display. Work aside, the subjective impression of everything you watch on this display is simply amazing. Everything is super crisp and colors pop with a 4K resolution of 3840 by 2400. Only OLED-equipped laptops or Apple's MacBook Pro mini LED displays can compete in terms of contrast. While response times aren't amazing, color reproduction is solid out of the factory, but our manual calibration shows what the XPS is capable of. With an average delta E below 1 after calibration, this laptop display can easily compete with proper hardware calibrated reference displays. I would have no problem with trusting this for my high-end retouching work, and Dell even offers some presets like Rec 709 that allow you to do semi-professional color grading for videos. Alright, let's see if the 17-inch laptop can also deliver in terms of performance. Dell equips this year's model with Intel's mainstream powerhouse, the i7-12700H. The hybrid chip offers 6 performance and 8 efficiency cores and can be found in many different laptops this year and offers a ton of performance. But it also needs a lot of power to perform at its best and generates a lot of heat when doing so. Given that Dell hasn't changed the chassis in a few years, the cooling system has a hard time keeping up with the CPU during longer workloads. Dell offers 3 performance profiles that allow the chip to sip quite a bit of juice for a short time before it levels out at a more reasonable state. This means the XPS is speedy in short loads or when a lot of single-core performance is needed, making it perform quite well in creative applications for photo editing such as Photoshop or Capture One. Should your workflows require longer multi-core loads, then you should be aware that you won't get the full performance the 12700H is actually capable of. For a more in-depth look and benchmark comparisons, please head over to a written review on our website. My colleague Andreas did a great job comparing the XPS to its competitors, and with our comparison tool, you can pit it against whatever laptop you desire. In everyday use or when juggling a lot of programs simultaneously, system performance is excellent due to the speedy core components, the generous RAM config and a very fast NVMe SSD. In the GPU department, the XPS leaves a mixed impression. While the RTX 3050 is not a bad chip and offers adequate performance in some GPU accelerated creative applications, it's only the 60W version, which is a downgrade from last year. In addition, as soon as the GPU is used, Dell limits the available power budget for the CPU significantly. In extreme scenarios like our 1-hour stress test, the i7 has only 25 watts at its disposal, which seriously hampers performance as soon as GPU and CPU are used simultaneously. This test also shows that the included 130-watt USB-C charger is running at its maximum, and might even be the culprit for the low wattage during combined loads. If you want to enjoy the occasional game, the XPS can deliver almost 60 FPS for most titles as long as you stick to Full HD and high settings. During light workloads or shorter performance bursts, the XPS is mostly inaudible. If you take advantage of the CPU and GPU for longer or at the same time, it can get quite loud, even though Dell is using a vapor chamber to cool the 17-inch notebook. In terms of battery life, the big XPS can hold its own amongst the competition. Only Apple's MacBook Pro 16 is playing in an entirely different league. But amongst other powerful multimedia or content creation devices, the Dell can compete and offers an excellent 9 hours and 11 minutes in our standard Wi-Fi test. Alright folks, let's wrap things up. The only real big problem is performance in this year's XPS 17. This doesn't mean performance isn't great, it's just that the chassis, cooling solution and power budget just isn't enough to keep up with the power-hungry Alder Lake i7 chip. For everyone aware of its limitations and who can look past benchmark numbers, Dell offers an excellent everyday laptop with amazing build quality, adequate inputs and flexible I/O. The true highlight is of course the gorgeous 4K Adobe RGB display that makes the XPS one of the very few remaining creative powerhouses for professional color grading on the go without the need for an external reference screen. Our review configuration is available on Dell's website for around €3,000 or $2,600 respectively. That would be it for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed our review. Please don't forget to help us out by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I'm Alex, you have been amazing and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care.